All right, welcome back everybody to Lawyers Happy Hour. So this is our January 2024, which I'm calling 24 Carat 24 episode of Lawyers Happy Hour. I think we've been around in this iteration for 5-ish years, something. Formerly met at the Darcy Hotel in Washington, D.C. And of course, we went virtual in March of 2020 and just been rocking and rolling ever since. So I'm going to introduce today's speaker, Jia Zhang. Gia's mission is simple. She supports businesses in organizing their operations so that they can save time and money to pursue greater opportunities. Her background is with small business, directing a boutique market research firm, and helping partners scale. Overseeing the operations of her family business in timber exports and imports. Oh, that's super cool. And 10 years of experience. So helping businesses and teams at all levels simplify their processes so that they can increase their productivity by doing less. So without further ado, Gia.
Thank you, Dave, for having me, and thank you, everyone, for joining today. I'm super excited because getting organized is something I love talking about, and law is something that I know I need support in. So if I have clients who are looking for law support, now I know who to go to, hopefully. And so today's workshop is really all for you and all about you. What I love to do is do a little bit of introduction of how I work with clients, and then we'll get really into the meat of the workshop. Before I do, I want to drop in an exercise that I'll have you fill out at the beginning of our workshop. And so while I'm introducing myself, feel free to open that document because this is going to be an active workshop. We're actually going to be going in and doing the work together. In those first few minutes, we'll spend some time going through those questions. So welcome. My name is Gia Zhang, and I am the owner of Simply Gia. I am a coach and consultant for small businesses. And I really enjoy helping people to organize their systems, workflows, and structures so that they can do more of what they enjoy and less of what they don't. So in the chat, I would love to, if you're able to, share what your purpose is for starting your own business, because owning a business is hard, and especially for a law practice, and so I'm curious to hear from you what your purpose is for doing that uh, on your own. Um, and I want to see that because the reason I'm here today is because it took me a long time to figure out why I'm doing what I'm doing right now. I originally never really thought organization was a skill. And so I did spend my earlier years in market research. And during that time, I was kind of chasing this different career path. And I thought that I was supposed to be doing market research my whole life. And for some reason, it just didn't really click. And so then I realized that I was really focused on process in our company. And that's how we actually started growing, because that was one of our company's goals. And then I switched to my family business, and there um, I was also helping with the operations and logistics. So it taught me that no matter what business, um, the operations is really the foundations of growth. So if you're ready to grow, if you're ready to get to that next level, then having those operations in place and kind of the not so glamorous back end is really the power to getting to that place that you want to be. So that's a little bit about me. And so for today's workshop, what I'd love to do is go through and really figure out what is it that you want to get organized today. And then we're going to spend some time going around the room. I love that it's actually a small group today, because then we can really get deeper into the things that you're currently working on. And then hopefully by the end of this workshop, we'll be able to find one action item that you're able to take away from today and be able to implement it into your own business. So with that, if you're able to go ahead and click on that Google form in the chat and go through these questions here, and I'll give you a couple minutes to go through it, and then we can regroup and talk about some of these questions and go around the room and see what we can do today. I see someone else came in here too. Welcome, Patricia. So if you are able to see the Google form in the chat, we're working in that document right now. This is really to get our juices flowing and figure out what it is that you want to get organized today, because the purpose of today's workshop is to help you organize your business. And so this is the kind of like brainstorming part of the workshop, and then we'll get into it in a few minutes. I'm going to play some music. I can share my screen here. Share the wrong screen. Okay, so I see answers from Ryan, not Ryan, Thomas and Sean. Oh, what's we got? Data's in here too. Okay, so Ryan, were you planning to share answers? If not, totally fine. And if you want to keep your answers confidential, that's totally fine too. Oh, we got it. Okay, great. Wonderful. So,
Sorry, typing slowly.
oh no, you're fine. uh, Sometimes it takes a little bit of time to reflect, right? Okay. So what I'd love to do is spend some time to go around the room and have a discussion about what everyone is looking for. And during this portion, it'll be a combination of a mini coaching session, if you will, and then also kind of like a roundtable of listening to other people and what they're experiencing here. And I'm sure a lot of people will have things in common. And then after that, we can dive deep into one topic that kind of aligns with everyone's needs here, and we'll use that as an example of how you can organize it into your own business. And then we'll wrap up from there. Hi, Patricia. Nice to see your face. Okay, so let's go through and I'm going to go to Thomas here. So you had mentioned that your top two goals here are to improve productivity through systems and attracting new clients for your business. And the current pain points or problems that you want to work through are prioritizing work and managing client relationships, and then dedicating to marketing. So I'd love to hear a little bit more about the prioritization of the work and the managing client relationships. What do you feel like is something that you want to improve there?
So in essence, one of the problems that I have is that I often find myself a little paralyzed when faced with several different tasks whose importance is relatively similar. When there's an emergency, it's an emergency. It's really easy to prioritize things. And I guess throughout most of my career, that's been my situation where everything is so fast paced that, like it was easy to prioritize. But now, I have a firm, it's doing all right, but I don't have, nearly as much busy work, I suppose, as I have in the past. And so I found myself sort of like not being able to decide, or jumping back and forth between tasks, which is inefficient, and it interrupts my like deep work. I want to get into deep work, and when I get into deep work, I'm great. But when I'm being pulled in all these different directions, it's really difficult to get into deep work. And then another thing is that, as an attorney, like everyone here knows, I'm sure, that there's this internal pressure to bill. And if it's not billable work, it's not really work, or I mean it's work, but it's more a pain in the ass because you're not getting paid for it, right? And so um I want to be able to fit it into my day, but you know, whenever the choice is between billable work and non-billable work, my instinct is, well, billable work's more important. But I understand that the long-term health of my firm depends on me spending time and getting these things part of it. I've never faced this particular problem before. And so that was one of the things I was hoping that I could find out some strategies for. Does that make sense to you? Is that well explained?
It does, and I want to make sure I understand when you're saying that you had mentioned earlier that there isn't as much busy work to decide on, right? Or and that there's actually less of that busy work and you need to decide on like the more important things, but they're all equally important to you.
Well, I suppose the best way I could explain this is to tell you what the situation is, and that is I have one client who is on fire to go after this other person, and it's impatient, and it sends like really pushy emails every day. And I want to do what he wants me to do because I want him to shut up, right? Like that's really what I want. But if I do that and I focus all my time on him, then the other people who aren't as pushy, but also pay me money to do their work, like, you know, if I feel as though if I had a better organization system, I could fit in more stuff. And I guess, then I can just be like, well, it's out of my hands, it's on my calendar, which is generally how I think about things. But I need to I don't have a way of, I mean, like I understand that that's what I need, but there's need and then there's knowledge, right? And I don't have that knowledge. So
Got it. Yep. Okay. That makes sense. And then I see that the number one thing that you would love to get help on is the calendar too, which makes complete sense if you feel like there's just so much going on, but you don't know how to put onto your calendar. Yeah, that is something we can definitely talk about. Sean, I see you unmuted. Did you want to chime in and add anything here?
I don't remember actually. I think
Okay, okay.
so. I will go back.
No, that's okay. So briefly before we go into what other people have shared here, uh, have you heard of the Eisenhower matrix where it talks about urgency and importance of tasks?
I have honestly not heard of that, no.
Oh, okay. Great. So the Eisenhower matrix is a great example of how you can start thinking about your tasks in different quadrants. So it is it's basically a quadrant. And if you were to just put that on a grid on a piece of paper, um, the quadrants are urgent and important, and then you have important but not urgent, and then you have um not in no, the order here is urgent, important but not urgent, and then urgent but not important, and then not important and not urgent. So the scale is the level of importance and the level of urgency. And so I'm sure for the task where you understand that it's an emergency and it is important to you, then that's probably something that you would complete or work on, right? But then all the other things that are maybe important but not urgent, or that they are urgent but they're not that important, then you're kind of in this middle ground of like, well, what do I do now? And so um, ideally, especially if you're running a business, the sweet spot is working on the important but not urgent things. So if you're able to create a system where you're mostly working on the important but not urgent things, that's actually a lot of the business development, kind of the marketing that you're talking about. Of course, emergencies will come up and urgent things will come up, but that's really where you want to spend a lot of your time in, and that's what's going to get your business moving forward. So that's a starting point. We can go into hours and hours of, how you could organize your tasks differently, but I hope that helps.
Tia, do you want me to share a visual on that
Oh, yes, please.
real quick? Let's
She
see.
was right ahead of me. That was gonna be my next question. Could you share a visual of that?
Yes.
Yeah, here we go. And this just came up on Asana website, not endorsing Asana unless they call me later and give us money, but they're not necessarily. So here you go.
Perfect. Yes. So great. Yeah. So urgent and not urgent at the top, and then not important and important on the left side of this scale. And so, right, exactly what they're recommending here is you want to do the things that are important and urgent, of course, but ideally what you want to be spending your time in is the not important, or sorry, not urgent but important things, which is what you want to schedule out, because those are going to be the things that contribute to that long-term success. The not important and urgent, I don't know if you have a team, but that is where ideally, because they're not important to you, but they're urgent, that you want to delegate it out. And then the last column here, the not important, not urgent, essentially you want to just take them out of your life. And depending on, I know that you said you're fairly new with the business, and so maybe that's not an option for you yet, but I would encourage you to think about over time, making a list of all the things that you need to do and the things that you don't want to do. And that is how you can, over time, build out a team or build out a system where you are constantly working on the more important things. Oh, thanks, Patricia. Does that help, Thomas?
Oh, wait, I'm not muted. Yes, that does help. The Eisenhower matrix.
Yes, awesome, wonderful. And again, this is just a very brief overview of that, but that hopefully will give you a start. Okay, so let's hear from Sean here. So Sean, you had said that you wanted to streamline your billing and collections procedures and increasing passive advertising efforts. And yep, okay, and so those are the things that you really want to work on. Thank you, Dale, for sharing. Okay, so how does it look right now? How does your current billing and collections procedure look like right now?
I'm constantly wavering between trying to do rolling billing and make sure that I am just getting the bills out as projects are done, but yeah, I always seem to fall back into billing at the end of the month. And I guess when you bill at the end of the month, that means that your follow-ups and collections efforts can follow on that same schedule as opposed to being scattered throughout the month with each bill coming due on a 30-day term on a different day of the month. But it's been hard to decide what's the best practice. A lot of times I will have, for the same client throughout the month, I'll have multiple projects that are going on. So I feel like if I'm attempting to do rolling billing, then they're getting a new bill each day, and then they don't know what to do with things. So it's just been, there's a pro and a con for each way of doing things.
So you've tried different methods so far.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So I've been good this month, which is only technically 3 days old of the work that's been done. It's the bills have just gone out right away. And miraculously people have actually paid right away. So maybe that's an indication right there. That's when people see that a project or a particular task is finished and they get a bill right away, then they're more inclined to say, okay, great, that's this stage is done, and they pay the bill and we move on.
Right.
But I
Okay.
certainly anticipate as time rolls on, as we all get settled in from holiday break, the opportunity to send out a bunch of bills each day is probably those opportunities will be fewer and further between.
Right. Because it's going to stack up probably very
Yeah,
quickly
so just
over
more
time.
and more stuff going on as the month is going to progress and we get back into business as usual.
Right. How are you tracking? Do you have a software or system that tracks your billable hours or?
Yeah. So I do all of the um, time collection and billing through MyCase.
Okay. Okay. Got it. Um, have you tried billing by issue? So instead of doing, let's say, a rolling billing by day or by the week, it's whatever issue that comes up, you resolve it and then you bill it when it's done. Have you tried
Yeah,
that?
I guess I should clarify when an issue is addressed. So it's not like if I have one issue and I work on it 3 days in any given week, that there's a bill that goes out at the end of each day. It's when
Oh,
an issue is addressed.
mhm.
And if an issue spans for more than a month, then yes, it'll be billed at the end of each month. So it doesn't just linger.
Right. Okay. Um, I guess then my question to you is what is the benefit to you for doing the rolling billing versus doing it at the end of the month? Is it so that you get cash flow faster or
Just to get it done and not have to say, okay, I'm going to take the last Sunday of the month, and that's going to be the day that I take a couple hours in the afternoon and I try and get all of the billing squared away.
mhm.
Since there's always something else to do on that last Sunday of the month or whatever day it might be.
Right. Okay. And then what do you not like about the rolling billing? It's that anticipation of, well, this is going to be hard to sustain over time.
Yeah, hard to sustain over time, and I never know what clients prefer what. I guess the unknown is easily
Mhm.
fixed by asking the question. So some smaller clients where the decision makers are also paying the bills, maybe they would appreciate um, you know, getting bills more frequently so they can pay them on a regular basis and work them into their cash flow. Whereas larger clients certainly don't want to have a new bill each week. They like to just get a batch at the end of the month and process things all together.
So what do you prefer?
I'm thinking that it's probably a hybrid, and maybe I've answered my own question just by um, as part of the intake process, asking clients what their preference would be, whether they would like to be billed for all matters during the month at the all time incurred during the month at the end of the month, or if they would like to be billed as issues and different matters are completed.
Yeah, I think that'd be a great solution for now. And then over time, as you work to streamline it, as you get more clients and more work, then I would say stick to what really works for you. Because if you're going to be having to track that, then that's context switching, where then every single client you have to think about, okay, is this going to be billed monthly or is it going to be rolling every time you look at the bills? And so what I would recommend is, have you actually at your clients from the last year and seen the data of how many are being billed on a rolling basis versus how many are billed monthly?
Really, the push to do rolling billing was towards the end of last year, just
Okay,
because it seemed like trying to do everything at the end of the month was too cumbersome.
I see. Okay.
So I guess I don't really have any consistent or good data to weigh one option against the next.
I see. Okay. So then maybe what you can do is this year, maybe experiment with that. Have your intake form, have your clients note in the intake form how they would prefer to do it, and then keep track by the end of the year how many people prefer which one over the other. And um, if it ends up being the monthly, which I think, even though it takes a bigger chunk of your time at the end of the month, I think that would just smooth things out a lot more. If you're able to just weave that into your calendar and know that that's a non-negotiable for your business, I'm just thinking right now that that could be more efficient than to do the rolling, unless more clients prefer to do the rolling. And at that point, then what you could do is maybe set aside time every week instead to do the rolling, so that you're not having to think about rolling invoices every day, right?
Yep, fair enough.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay, so Ryan, let's go to you. Let's see, you had shared wanting to improve the intake and make the flow quicker. So yeah, similarly, talking about the intake process, can you talk a little bit more about what you would want improved there and how to make it faster?
Oh, geez. I don't know how to, I don't know what I don't know. I- Maybe if I could, I know some people do a thing where they like send people a form and have them fill it out ahead of time. I don't even know how to make that happen.
Okay, what kind of information do you typically need from your clients?
Usually, you know, address, phone number, contact info, what the matter's about. Um, if it starts being any kind of estate planning or elder law issues or guardianship issues, then I start needing to know everybody else's contact information. If they're going, like who the people are, who the beneficiaries are going to be. If it's something where it's an adult child taking care of a parent, I'm going to need to know who the parent is, where the parent lives, or if it's a sibling taking care of another sibling, those kinds of issues. I'm going to need to know who all the players is. And sometimes that takes a little bit to get all that information out of people. Sometimes they just don't know they need to tell me all this stuff up front. And I try to get it up front, but I keep finding myself going, okay, so if that doesn't work out, then what? And who is that next person? Or those kinds of issues. And does it just, I don't know. I just feel like maybe I could be better.
Yeah, okay. And how are you using this information? Do you have to take information from that intake form to then plug it into something else? Or is it just so that you can get a comprehensive overview of the issue that they are presenting to you?
Well, sometimes most of the time I'm plugging it into something else. I'm plugging it into, if it's an estate plan, I'm plugging it into a trust or a will or a both. I'm plugging it into their powers of attorney. I'm plugging, if it's some sort of guardianship issue and we're petitioning the court for a guardianship or a transaction in lieu of a guardianship, then I need to know lots of stuff about the person in order to put that in the petition so the court knows what we're talking about. And it's just sometimes you don't know what you don't know, but sometimes you like well, as an example, I have a one that we're qualifying, the client's loved one for Medicaid, and because their loved one is sick enough to need long-term care in a skilled nursing facility. So I said, well, the limits for, they told me my loved one doesn't have anything. They're broke. They don't have anything. And I said, well, then that shouldn't be a problem. And then I said, okay, so I'll need the bank statements going back, 5 years, blah, blah, blah. And the first bank statement came in and they had more. They didn't have much, but they had more than, the maximum amount of assets that you can have. And I'm like, well, I know it doesn't seem like nothing or much, but it's something. It's not nothing. And something is more than nothing. And this particular something was more than you're allowed to have. So we have choices as to what you're going to do with it. You get choice A or choice B. Anyway,
Right.
I just feel like I could be more efficient sometimes. Sometimes you just can't be more efficient because the ball's out of your control. You move your piece on the board and you wait for the court or the administrative agency or whatever to move its piece on the board, and you can't move your piece until every other player has moved their piece. It's like a board game. Court is like a board game.
Yes. So thank you for sharing that. I want to respect our time too, because I know that we want to end about 5 till the hour. But what I want to say there is in services like these, I think what is really valuable is having strategic partnerships. And so I know that there are other businesses who help with estate planning specifically, and getting to that point where they can help the clients understand what it is that they actually want out of their future, or the next steps before they even meet with an attorney. So perhaps something like this tells me that they might not even be ready for they may not be ready to work with you at this point because they don't know the information that they need. So it's like you might not know what you don't know yet because they don't even know.
Yeah.
And
Sometimes
so,
it's a coaching. Sometimes there's some coaching involved.
right. So with that, then I would say perhaps there is this piece of education that would be really valuable for your clients before they even start working with you. So before they even uh, maybe meet with you for billable hours, it's this education piece beforehand that they need to be walked through to understand what kind of information they need to send you so that you can best support them. Now, with that said, it sounds like you have an understanding of what kind of information you need for specific situations. So it might not be a general intake form for all new clients, but it actually might be that you have different intake forms for different purposes. So one might be for estate planning, one might be for something completely different. One might be for small business advising, right?
Mhm.
Because they need different contacts, they need different information, different accounts, things like that. So I would say perhaps something to start with is to, for each different situation, list out all the different things that you would need, and then whatever backup information that you would need if they don't have that primary information. And then start creating a form from there. And then quite honestly, you could start as easy as something like a Google form where you can create it in there and just see what works. And then over time, you can probably find a software that would be specific to providing that intake information for your specific practice. Does that help?
Sure.
Okay. And then I do want to mention, so I know Thomas, you had mentioned ADHD, and Ryan, you had shared that you have ADHD as well. So it's actually very interesting that the clients I work with, they do tend to have ADHD or feel like they have ADHD, even if they're not diagnosed. And one of my peers, she is a coach for women with ADHD. And one of the things that is that's something that she likes to share is that people with ADHD are 5 times more likely to be entrepreneurs. So it is not something to, um, uh, you know, count as something negative. And I totally understand where you're coming from with the ADHD brain of, well, everything is important, or that you just can't decide what is important. And that is something I see very common with ADHD, where it's like, okay, I have all these ideas, I just don't know where to start. So I want to acknowledge that that is a challenge, but it's a good challenge because that means that you have great ideas. And so if you need that kind of support, then something like a coach or someone who can be there to help you prioritize is very helpful. And so really quickly, I just want to share Daya's answers here. So you had mentioned growth, systemization, following up and supporting clients regularly, and then finding the right system for you to scale. Be able to hand off some of the follow-up tasks, but be able to break them down and training, yes. So really quickly, would you like to share what it is that you would want to hand off and be able to break down and train?
Yeah, sure. Generally I need I need a little me, a little somebody who handles the administrative stuff, like doing a lot of the follow-up emails. I do a lot of networking, and like I'm in the meeting and I go, oh, I need to connect so and so with so and so. And then I get off the meeting and I go to another meeting, and then I have to go back to my notes and be like, oh, I know that person for LinkedIn, and I know this other person in my CRM, and I know this other person. I only have their text, I only have their phone number, and so like, how do I get all these people together? And sort of the consistency of like following up on both people who are interested in working with me, and of course my clients. We have regular meetings scheduled, but most of them are lawyers, so a lot of times they call off. I got a last minute this, I got a last minute that. And they don't hit the reschedule, and so it's like, okay, who's where they're supposed to be, and that kind of thing. It's a lot of moving parts, and I also very like creative. I don't know if I have ADHD or not, but hey, you know what, I'm definitely very creative and have lots of ideas. So for me, it's like picking the thing and sticking with it and not worrying about the other things.
Yes. Yeah. I completely understand this need for having a little me. Like when businesses are at that stage of growth, that's one of the common things people say. They're like, I just need someone who is just like me and they know exactly what to do. And so with that, hiring is very important if you want to grow. but I want to say hire with caution and really know who you're hiring and what specific roles and responsibilities you want to be taken care of and how you want them executed. One of the things I see happens a lot is people either hire too quickly or they overhire. And so the whole conversation of what it is that you would want to hand off to someone, that would be, you know, a completely deeper conversation. But with just the time that we have today, what I want to say is to have a really good understanding of what these specific tasks are and how can you document it in a way where it would be easy to understand for someone else to come in and just walk through that training with you once or twice and then be able to have them follow that system. When you sometimes people get to a point where they put off the hiring and they don't think about it until they really, really need it. And then they go out and hire out of desperation almost because they're just at that max capacity. And usually that means then they've hired someone for the wrong role or that they actually didn't need that hire at all. They needed something completely different. And so that's just my comment about that. So yes, you know, the fact that you're thinking about that right now, I think is a great sign because then you can plan for it and then you can be really intentional with who you hire. Awesome. Okay, so we actually went through so much today. And I was planning to do one larger conversation that would apply to everyone, but I do want to respect everyone's time here. And so what I'd love to do is just share with you that this really is kind of touching the surface of what you can do with getting organized. And the short conversations we had here are really kind of an introduction of how you can dive deeper into each of these topics. So Thomas, you know, the idea of prioritization, that is something that we can do for an entire session. The billing, Sean, that whole plan, you could create a strategy for, you know, when you want to roll this out, the intake form, the rolling billing and then the monthly billing, and then figuring out how you want to analyze it. And then Ryan, I mean, that is a deep one. Going through how you want to actually take in that information. And then even before that, you know, what kind of education would you want to provide for your clients? So with that, if any of you would like to dive deeper into any of these topics, then I invite you to book a complimentary coaching session with me. I don't share this publicly, so this is really a thank you for you showing up today and dedicating time to yourselves. And so if you know that this is something that you would want support in, then I encourage you to book that time so we can get deeper into the topics that we talked about today, and then see if this is something that you would want support in long term. With that, we're at 5 before. And so I want to say thank you again for showing up for yourselves here. Thank you, Dave, for having me here. It's been great learning about what your businesses are like and great to hear what you do. They're also interesting. I would love to learn more about them. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Gia, and thank you for everybody that came tonight. Yeah, again, this is a monthly meeting, and if you have topics that you're interested in having speakers for, by all means, get in touch, send me a message through the meetup, but most of you already have my email address. Anyway, so thank you for starting off this wonderful new year with us. And I mean, what a great topic. I mean, getting organized and, you know, using that sort of new year momentum. And please follow up with Gia. It's a wonderful, valuable service that she's offering. Yeah, so until next time, everybody save the chat so that they get that. And until next time, thank you very much.
Thank you, Gia. Thank you, Dia.
Thank you.
Thanks all.